It's the final leg of our great journey through the American West. We were just so excited for all the activities that we had planned out over the next couple of days. We couldn't help but think to ourselves that everything up to this point in our trip was leading to a really fun grand finale. Another moody day. We woke up early in our room at Grant Village in the south of Yellowstone, where we had spent the last 2 days and 2 nights exploring and enjoying the scenery all around the park. Today we're heading just south of Yellowstone to the marvelous Grand Teton National Park, where we are looking to kick off this adventure with an epic hike through the mountains, which is why we got up and moving so early. We needed to pack the car and ready all of our gear for our big hiking day. We already know that we're going to spend maximum time in the mountains today, and that we're also heading to one of the more popular areas in the park. For this reason, we knew we had to get there early to find parking, and we're actually going to catch a ferry ride over to our trailhead. Immediately upon entering the park, we're treated with some of the most stunning first glimpses of this incredible Teton mountain range. We really couldn't help ourselves. We had to pull over real quick at the Jackson Lake overlook to take in the sights. We even had a bear sighting while we were here. Well, sort of. They were actually stuffed bears that the rangers were using to educate park visitors about the resident bear population. Still though, how cool. We couldn't stay and admire for too long, however, because the parking lot at the Jenny Lake Visitor Center where we are heading fills up rather quickly in the mornings, so we're trying to make good time getting over there. And being in a rush, of course, we had an actual bear sighting when we spotted a mama bear with her 2 adorable, clumsy cubs. It's a little bit further south, but still fairly centrally located within the park. Jenny Lake is a very popular area with many guests, as I mentioned before. From the visitor center here, you can catch a ferry ride to a trailhead located on the opposite side of the lake, which starts another very popular trail called the Cascade Canyon Trail, and this is actually where we planned on hiking for the rest of our afternoon. Although it wasn't the very first ferry ride of the day, like we told ourselves the night before we could catch, we were able to hop on one of the earlier departures of the Jenny Lake Ferry. It was a stunning ride through these massive mountains, so gorgeous. We were just so pumped to be able to be doing this hike and that we were going to be able to take in these stellar views all day. The ferry typically runs from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. during the peak summer season. It costs $20 per adult for a round trip or $12 for a one-way ticket. It eliminates about a 2-mile venture around the lake from the visitor center to the other ferry dock, which also happens to be the trailhead. This ends up being a super popular way for guests to day hike to Hidden Falls and Inspiration Point, both places we will be heading to right now. As soon as we're off the boat and into the forest, we were hiking next to some beautiful flowing water, which we seemed to just follow all the way up the mountain today. Our first destination was going to be a short, half-mile spur trail off of the main trail to the most incredible waterfall called Hidden Falls. And what a beauty it was! A really decent-sized falls with a good amount of water cascading down its rocky face. This was an easy little detour off of the main trail with a huge scenic reward, a must-do for those hiking along this route. After our very short time with the falls, we continued on, walking with the crowds of people, all beginning our quick ascent along this set of switchbacks that you can see people hiking along now. And now we made it. 7,200 feet in elevation, the unforgettable Inspiration Point overlook, gazing out over the splendid Jenny Lake. At this time, we're just going to sit ourselves down and have some snacks, rehydrate on some water, and just make sure to really take a minute and rest, enjoy our surroundings, and take in these epic views. We even had wildlife sightings while we were just sitting here when we spotted an eagle soaring the skies just below us. And then down further, when we looked to our left, was a friendly little marmot enjoying his day out on the rocks as well. While there are many visitors to the park that do make the trek to Hidden Falls and then up to Inspiration Point, many of these visitors will turn around here and head back down for their return ferry rides. Some do continue onward, hiking deeper into the canyon and finding a turning point a little ways up the trail, usually after one of the clearings. Fewer yet will travel all the way to the back, and the further you go, the less and less people you will see. Our plan was to really send it today and to see if we could make it all the way to the end of the North Fork Trail at Lake Solitude. The views on this hike started off amazing, even on the boat ride over here, and they didn't get anything less throughout. It was stunning the entire length of the canyon. In fact, they just kept getting better and better as you go along. And there continued to be abundant wildlife up here. There were marmots around like every corner, it seemed like, sunning themselves out in the toasty morning sunshine. This trail takes you throughout the alpine forest alongside this brilliant stream, and every once in a while you catch a glimpse of these huge towering mountains that you're hiking between. And soon enough we come to one of the many rock slides where the forest trees are cleared out and you are able to get these breathtaking views. Between the beautiful rock slides, we would weave back into the mountain forest, kind of breaking up the continuity of the hike and making each clearing a new breathtaking experience. Right about now, we were looking up above us at some darker clouds rolling in, breaking up our beautiful blue skies from this morning, something which we had already seen so often on this trip, with the afternoon showers being a common occurrence in this part of the world. We were still able to use our cell phones at this point, and we got on the weather apps and we saw that there was not going to be any kind of serious weather heading our way yet. Maybe some light rain if it was going to happen, so we decided to stick with the plan and continue our way up the canyon. The further we traveled up this canyon, we felt like the views just continued putting our jaws on the floor every time we stepped out of one of these forest clearings. Along the south wall of the canyon, for miles and miles, you can look up and see waterfalls in full flow, tumbling water down the side walls coming from all the fresh snowmelt. It was just such a magical place, such an incredible thing to witness and experience. After we had sat down for a quick trail lunch, we are back on the move. Thus far, Cascade Canyon has had some moderate elevation gain. It almost doesn't even seem like we were actually walking uphill, but we're about to get to the back of the canyon where we will enter the North Fork of the Cascade Trail, which is a much steeper section of the hike. It's just going to be a bit further now through the forest. Got a couple more waterfalls to see and more streams to cross. There were multiple groups of other hikers that we passed that actually told us about some wildlife sightings as well. A couple groups had told us about a bear just off the trail a little ways, and then one other group told us they saw a moose. We didn't see any of these for ourselves, but it does go to show you that this is an active zone for wildlife spotting as well as great mountain viewing. And even though we didn't get to spot either the bear or the moose, we did continue to spot a lot of marmots. the entire way up the trail. They seem to get more frequent as you go along. Now we are about 5 miles into our hike, and we have made it to the back of Cascade Canyon. We turned right, heading towards the north, straight for Lake Solitude. We are really getting up there now, as this is part of the hike that gains elevation much quicker than before. The trees start to really thin out as we near the tree line. We're really getting into a remote section of the mountains now. Once you're up above the trees, the Tetons really expose themselves, and we are getting into some stunning view territory here. Above the tree line, meandering through this alpine environment, we are looking back at a couple of around 13,000 foot peaks in Grand Teton and Mount Owen. What an incredible experience to have, and what a scene to be hiking through. This will forever be a core memory in my life, I am sure. At this point, we have gone so far, we're just determined to make it to Lake Solitude. We figure if we keep a good pace, we might be able to get to it, maybe run our fingers across the surface, and then head back down for the final ferry run of the evening.
So fast.
But it's just our luck. The afternoon showers that we have grown so used to on this trip already have come in, and it started lightly raining on us. Beyond that, the trail takes a bit of a turn as the path turns rugged and kind of disappears beneath the snow and into a rock field. It can require a bit of scrambling through at certain points. We are all starting to get a bit tired at this point too, so our legs are feeling heavier now. The remaining snow up here, which there was plenty of still, is all melting in the summer sun and creating a bunch of small streams flowing downhill, hidden beneath our feet. On a couple of occasions, someone would either punch through or just take a step through the snow and fall almost up to their knees into a cavern, almost soaking our shoes, or worse, hurting ourselves all the way up here. We can actually see Lake Solitude at this point, right from where we took a little snack break here, but an executive decision was made to head back down and to catch our return ferry ride back across Jenny Lake. We had decided as a group that we were completely fulfilled by this hike already. There was no reason we had to get to the lake. We already know we overdid it today, and we did not want to add an extra 2 miles around the lake at the end of this trip, so we're heading back down. And we are aware that we are going to have to keep up a pretty good pace to make it all the way down, so being in a rush, of course, another adorable wildlife sighting. Here's a pika coming out to enjoy some of the sun while it can.
How cute he is.
It's my attraction, my friend. Oh, he's so cute. I think
Thankfully, the rain didn't completely drench us while we were exposed up here. We were able to make it off of the snow and the rocks. We hurriedly began our descent back down to the boat dock. It took about 4 hours or so getting up here, and it was around 4 o'clock when we started heading back down, so we were setting our pace to make it back in 3 hours. The very last ferry of the night takes off at 7 p.m. sharp, which means we didn't really have a lot of time to rest on the way down. We enjoyed what we could, but we really needed all of those 3 hours for our return. We were the very last people to get in the boat as they were shutting everything down for the evening. We were really lucky we had made it back down in time. We didn't want to walk any further at this point as our legs were absolutely dead. We had pushed ourselves too much today, so you can imagine the pain in our eyes when we got off the boat and had to see our car all the way across the parking lot and even down the entry road a little ways. It was the hardest part of the hike by far, going from the visitor center to the car after sitting down on the boat for 20 or so minutes on dead legs. One reason to get there early. Not even a moose sighting on the way out of the park could garner up enough excitement for this crew to want to now go set up a campsite for the night. We had 2 nights booked at the Grovant campground, including this night, but they were different sites each night, so we knew we were going to have to set up and then tear down in the morning, and at this point we said forget that. We could barely walk. We started calling some hotels in the nearby town of Jackson, Wyoming, and actually found a reasonably priced room and said, no camping tonight, our bodies need a legit night's sleep. It was the perfect recharge for us, having nice comfy beds to sleep in. We woke up feeling rested and ready to go on this final day of our adventure, in which we had some huge plans for this afternoon. But first, we had a little bit of time this morning to check out a couple of really cool landmarks, including our first stop, Mormon's Row. Mormon's Row is a set of old barns and farmhouses that predate the area becoming a national park. These people settled here in the Teton Valley, and today their barns and houses still exist. They're quite famous for photographers grabbing a unique shot of these old barns with this brilliant mountain backstop. Next up, we have another easy to reach area in the park, popular with the guests, called Schwabacher Landing, just down the road. This place is another beautiful pull-off that takes you close up to the Snake River as it winds its way through the Teton Valley. Another great spot for photographers looking to grab a shot of the mountains reflecting off of the still pools, and it's also good for seeing moose apparently. Lastly, we had just enough time to pull over at the Glacier View turnout. Here we got to take in a full view of the front of the Teton Range unimpeded. It was simply stunning. We also found some signage about the glaciers in the Tetons and was able to learn a little bit about what I was looking at and about the glacial ice shrinking and disappearing. I felt lucky to have been able to witness these glaciers. Leaving here, we piled back in the car and we're heading now south of Jackson towards one of the local ranches where we have a horseback ride up to the mountains planned for this afternoon. We were so excited to be able to do this. One of the original drivers of this entire vacation was the idea of being able to ride horses in the mountains out west, and we were making it happen right now. We arrived at the Mill Iron Ranch, ready to go, ready for our trail ride. We just had to check in with the staff and get our group assigned to a guide, and then we would be off into the woods, heading right up the mountain. There was quite a bit of rain in the area over the past week. They actually said a good portion of their trails were closed due to the conditions. This kind of forced all of their guests to be taking the same trail up the mountain, but they did a phenomenal job managing everyone's trail rides. We were all put into smaller groups, plus a guide. We had 3 in our groups, and we were put with another small group of 2 people, which was totally fine with us. So we had a group of 5 total, plus our guide, for a really fun and more personal experience. We were able to all be close enough to our guide to have conversations and to talk about the ranch and the area, and it was just a phenomenal time. Here goes Chloe hopping on her horse, Jeremy. And we are off, heading up the mountain. We gained some serious elevation today rather quickly. It also started raining on us almost immediately after leaving, which worried me a bit as I underprepared for the rain. I actually put my rain jacket back in the car. You might think I would have learned my lesson at this point in our trip, given that it's rained on us almost every afternoon here. Lucky for me though, the rain did not stick around and we ended up with a gorgeous afternoon for our trail ride. Hannah's trusty steed on this day was Wayland, and I was lucky enough to be riding Big Red. By the time we were nearing the summit of the mountain, the rain clouds had mostly passed us, the sun was starting to shine through and to dry off our damp clothes, the wildflowers were in full bloom, and it was just the most incredible way to connect with this land and to see these spectacular sights. To really get way out here into nature with these marvelous animals was just such a unique and fun experience. We had such a great time. The views up here most certainly did not disappoint. Everything around us was stunning. We were really high up on this mountain. It was a bit nerve-wracking actually to look down over the edge from up here on horseback, then to know your life is just trusted to this animal that you don't know at all. I just figured that the horse didn't want to go over the edge just as badly as I didn't want to go over the edge, so I was able to trust my companion and allow my gaze to kind of wander out over these mountains, really taking in all the sights. We stopped at the summit with just enough time to really soak in the views and for our guide to snap a couple of group photos. A quick descent down this big mountain on horseback reminded us of all kinds of muscles we never even knew we had. It was pretty exhausting, which after our big hike yesterday had our legs feeling like jelly by now. Lucky for us, Mill Iron Ranch served up the most incredible dinner when we got back down. Steak and potatoes and corn and dinner rolls. It was the most delicious cut of meat, cooked perfectly, and it was the most perfect accompany meal to our evening trail ride. Now we head back to our camp that we had actually set up earlier that day at the Grovant campground, just in time to catch a beaver sighting in the river with this amazing sunset backdrop. And then just down the road, a moose sighting where we saw this beautiful mama moose and her adorable little calf. We spent our final night doing a little bit of camping stuff, but we were really exhausted again tonight and pretty much just made a fire for a little while and went to sleep. It was a nice campground. I would definitely stay here again if I ever came back and explore this area a little bit more. We were basically here just to lay our weary heads though, and that's exactly what we did. We rested up and in the morning, amongst the prairie dogs, packed everything away into the car for the very last time on this adventure. We had a full day of driving ahead of us, planning on finding a motel around the Lincoln, Nebraska area, and then one more full day of driving back home after that. This marks the end of our great American road trip that took us through some iconic landmarks of the famous American West. We had the most fabulous time while we were here, an adventure all of us will look back upon very fondly for the rest of our lives. Thank you all so much for joining us.